Hello, I'm Michael Caskey. I'm one of the pastors at the Ironton Presbyterian Church. It's one of the churches in Iron Station, North Carolina. It's right beside of the post office out on Highway 27. Now, if you're an old timer and you've been to Iron Station, you know who Lorene Grigg was. Tell us about her, Pat, would you?
Well, she opened the Grigg and Pay store, grocery store way back when I was in the first grade, I think it was.
First grade?
That was 1940, 41, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Before the war? Wow.
I was born in 34, so it was 1940.
Yeah.
No, it was Pat. I finished high school in 43, so it's got to be about 45.
Okay, my math is wrong, so blame it on that.
So you finished high school in 43,
I
Lorene?
finished high school in 43, got married in 47.
Ah, who'd you marry?
Frank Grigg.
Frank Grigg.
In 48, I had my first child, Pat.
Pat.
And let's see, Bonnie, my sister, and Pat went to school together.
We're the same age. I'm from May to September older than Bonnie.
Oh, okay.
We were friends from first grade on up.
Okay.
And see, Bonnie was born in 34, and let's see, she would have started school in the 40s, 41, like you said.
40 and 41 school year.
Now, so when do you think you opened the store? Was it before you got married or after?
No,
It was after.
they built the store after I was married.
Okay, now that store is the one that's right beside of the original Iron Station School,
Yeah, that's right,
right on Highway 27.
on Highway 27.
And everybody who grew up in Iron Station, that was the hub.
That was the store. We're going to the store.
We're going-
to the station.
We're going to the store,
If you wanted the store, you went to
Station.
Lorene's store.
and everybody, I opened up the store in the mornings, so the school children opened up at 6, 7 o'clock in the mornings. Built a fire in the wood stove so the children could get warm. Their parents dropped them off because they were going to J.B. Stevens and Stanley to work. They didn't have to stand outside. I let them come inside, gave them a penny supper, and told them to be quiet and don't run all over the store. And, so in the afternoons, I was a babysitter. They dropped the children off.
And here comes Patsy. Hey,
Michael, you doing good?
I'm doing well.
Good. My clothes weren't quite dry, so let them give another turn. I had some towels.
This is her oldest child, Patsy. Patsy Gilbert, right?
That's correct.
And Patsy is the same age as or approximately the same age as my oldest sister, I believe.
Mary.
You're Mary's
I
age?
was born in January, and she was born in what?
August? Is that right? Yeah, she was born in August. A little bit older. Pat can remember stuff I never knew.
I was 22nd, if I'm not mistaken.
So we're going through the history of Iron Station.
Her daddy's birthday was the 23rd, and I know supposedly she was born the day before.
Yeah. Now, Pat, you're a retired school teacher, I believe,
That's
aren't you?
correct. I
Yeah.
taught life science at East Lincoln Junior High. It was junior high then.
Yeah, that's
Then I
right.
went back and got my counseling degree and was a high school counselor then.
Yeah, yep.
I took early retirement to help out Dad.
Okay, that's so we got two Pats and one Lorene. Now, so far I've successfully avoided having myself in the picture. That's the way it's going to remain. So you started that store, and did the brick building, was that the way you built it, or did it start out as wood? Did you rebuild it?
It was built with brick.
It was built.
Raymond Holland laid the brick.
Ah.
And James Griggs opened up the store.
Ah.
Daddy bought the old almond store before I was married.
Ah.
And he bought it for James Grigg, and James ran it for a year or so.
Ah.
Then later, Daddy built, with all the Iron Station people, the Saunders and Joe Dellner did the wiring, and the Saunderses did the carpenter work, Raymond Holland did the brickwork. Anybody there needed a job, they didn't have no job, so everybody went in there and worked. Built a store. So it was a community store.
Well, the old time Iron Station people, all those names sound familiar. You know, we knew all those people. And so now, how did it start out? What did you start out selling? Was it a general store or just a gas station?
General store. We had gas. Started selling gas and groceries. And one side we had drinks, and there was some booths in there where you could sit down.
I remember the booths.
And drinks, and that was wonderful to be able to get a drink. Dick Long came every morning, brought Helen to the post office, and got him a Coca-Cola. First thing in the morning, it was a nickel. And it was terrible when they went up.
6 cents. Went up to penny. Yeah, that was horrible. It was a scandal.
And at night, Patty Sue would come up with her daddy to the store practically every night. And she and my sister Bonnie, maybe Pat here too, they stacked up the drink bottles, separated the Coca-Cola bottles and the Pepsi bottles and the Mountain Dew and the grapes and whatever, different ones. And another thing that I remember, Francis Gibson's, what was his son, Philip. When he was in college, he had to write an essay about something. So he wrote about the old store building, how we used it for security, the security we had. We stacked up cases of drink bottles against the doors, so if anybody broke in, so to make a noise.
You had a really nice candy counter too.
Oh yes, everybody.
Ice cream.
And ice cream.
Dipped ice
And I never did like chocolate ice cream, but still don't.
Oh, I like chocolate.
But we always had that ice cream, things of ice cream. And I always remember pulling Robin Caskey out of he was fixed to get in, trying to get something. He was going in on his head, and I just pulled him out.
I remember you could get a nickel bag of mixed up candy or a dime bag of mixed up candy.
Oh, do you remember Frank giving y'all a lot of cola?
Yep.
Frank gave you a lot of cola, a big lot of cola, and 3 straws. And now there's one thing I always loved: little girls and old people. And I always loved Linda and Nancy. They were the twins.
Yeah.
You always petted the little girls.
Yep. Yep.
And Frank gave that lot of cola was the biggest thing ever was. And gave y'all a straw, gave you a lot of cola and 3 straws.
He took a video of that or a movie of it.
Yeah, I know it.
Do you know where that is? Is it still in existence?
He still has the video.
Wow.
I think Betty had said it.
We'll have to transfer that to a DVD or something.
That would be something to see.
I remember at the Halloween Carnival, Frank showed it in the library and charged admission.
Did he?
Yeah, it's called the 3 Caskies. You remember that? We didn't have, it was me and Becky and Rusty, and we didn't have on shirts. You know, we were out there. We were just, little tiny things.
The lot of cola was as big as y'all were.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
All you could do to hold it.
Its selling point was that it was huge. I don't know if it was any good or not, but you drink what you could get in those days.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's Pat and Patsy. Remind you who we're talking to here. There's Lorene, and so now one end of your store you sold clothes. Blue jeans and shirts.
Blue jeans.
Do you sell shoes too?
Yes, so work shoes, boots, shoes.
Wow.
And also, I took orders for overalls. I remember Odie Mull coming to sit down in the store and having me to order Donald. He wore 5 Slim. And she'd have me to order him.
You remember that?
5 pair of jeans. And we put them on the charge, and we'd pay so much each week till they was paid for. She'd take them home with her.
Yeah, that's something. Now you mentioned that Helen Long working in the post office. Now that's the second post office.
Yes.
It's right. It was right to the left of your store across Highway 27. Do I remember correctly that they didn't have a bathroom in that post office?
No.
No, they can't.
So
She would close it and be back in 30 minutes or whatever, and you could see her walking to the
She would come to the store.
she come to your store.
To the store
Yes.
to use to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Now, those were the old days. When I was at Iron Station School, I think I started in '56 or '7 maybe, and the kids weren't allowed to go from the schoolyard across the road to your store. Now, if you walked home from school, you could go wherever you wanted to. So I used to make a lot of money going. They called it going across the road. You go across the road from me. So I'd take a nickel or penny or whatever it was they had, and I'd go get them something and bring it back.
And you'd make a penny.
And make a penny.
See, my cousin Lois, she was Lois Lineberger. She married Herman Sears when he got home from service. She would send me to the post office, which was okay, because the school needed its mail at least once a day. And the mail came a certain time, so she knew when that was. So I was allowed to go to the post office because it was right in front of the schools, but it was also on my way home. And so if she got a letter from Herman, her name was Lois Dixon Lineberger. Well, her mail came, and I just giggled all the way during that letter. It said Lois Darling Lineberger, and I thought that was the sweetest thing, but the funniest thing. And they got married as soon as he came home.
You were talking about taking groceries across the road. When I was in the 8th grade, Lester Ballard was the principal, and he was also our 8th grade teacher. So he was out of the classroom most of the time. But every day, well, maybe not every day, but several days a week generally, I would get a list. And I didn't make any money on mine. I wasn't smart enough to do that. I'd get a list of things that everybody wanted and take the money over there and get it. I either forgot my tennis shoes, I had a headache, needed an aspirin, whatever excuse I could think of, different excuses and things to go across the road. And I took those groceries back. I never will forget dill pickles. And you know how dill pickles smell.
Oh my goodness.
Bill Bradshaw, one of my best friends, wanted a dill pickle. And he came in and he still, I smelled dill pickles. So, but he knew, of course, what I was doing, I'm sure. But I never will forget when the report card time came out, he asked me, he said, and Miss Grigg, what do you think you deserve on conduct for taking groceries across the road? And I think I was flabbergasted. I think I said, I probably told him an A.
The year I worked there, my first year working in school, I was the bookkeeper, of course. School just had this little tiny office. When he got up, I sat down in that chair. When I got up, he sat down in the chair. So, he did a lot of the custodial work. And this gentleman came in, found his way to the office and said he wanted to speak to the principal. And when I had come up from having to go down to the cafeteria to the bathroom and come up those big steps, he was down there sweeping those steps off. I said, just go down to the far end of the hall. And he's on them, standing on those steps down there. And he come walking back real fast. He says, ma'am, you must be mistaken. Said, I went down there and said the janitor was standing there. I said, what was he doing? He said he was sweeping steps off. I said, that was him.
Now, who was the principal you talking about?
Lester Ballard.
Oh, goodness. He was there that long? Because he was principal when I was there.
When I went there in 73.
Oh, when you went to work there?
When I went to work.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you thought he was.
Yeah, I said, yeah, okay. Yeah, he was something else. I like Mr. Ballard.
Job.
Yeah.
I went to work as a part-time school secretary, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't do everything you had to do in a half a day.
Mm-mm.
Well, then they decided that so they could put me on as full-time, they wanted me to be a teacher's aide. We had a bunch of kids absolutely were having a terrible time learning, and they needed somebody one-on-one. Well, I said, what do I do? I'm not trained for a teacher. They said, I believe you could help these little, it was 4 little boys or 6 little boys, I'm not sure. So they'd send us to the library. And when I saw what I needed, I said, y'all sit right here and I'll be right back. I went up to the office and had a brand new box of pencils in there. And I got 6 or 10 pencils out. I kept record of them and took them down there. And I taught those kids to count with them with those pencils. I'd, you know, tell them how many, I'd ask them how many was this, and they'd say, that's just one. And just come in and give them 2 then.
Oh,
Whatever. Till they got so they could count to 10.
isn't that something?
And they were low kids, I mean.
Yeah.
But I found out I could teach them a little something.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah, you did. That's
And I
exactly.
got to work the whole day then. I got to do stuff.
Y'all remember when they built those 2 classrooms in the front?
Yeah.
The front of the building. You were. This was. I was still there when they built. I think. Yeah, I was still there when they built those
See,
classrooms.
my Taylor was in this first. He's in 2nd grade, I believe, because he got in on the new one.
Yeah. It didn't seem right to me, you know. The Iron Station, the old Iron Station school had its own distinctive smell.
It does.
I can still smell it. And you know, they'd oil the floors.
Oh yeah.
Oh
And
yes.
all that. And then one more thing while we're off the track here, we used to go to school barefooted in the springtime and nobody cared. You know, you could stand it. The school didn't care. We'd go for. But one more thing about smelling, Lorene, your drink box had the best smell in the world. You know, when you're taking the drinks out, every now and then I'll smell something that says that smells like Lorene's drink box. This thing.
I remember that.
You remember smells and stuff.
But you know, we could, when whoever's working was busy, we could go in the drink box and get our drink and then walk around to, you know, or even if, say, if Bonnie was over there working, of course, usually if she was loose, there's a lot, all the teenagers were loose, you know, free to, not loose, free to do, so then we'd be standing in line. Now, I never did take any money, you know, but I would hand them stuff, what they wanted, but they had to stand there. They couldn't pop the cap off till they got some money.
You remember the jukebox?
Yeah.
I remember the jukebox. And
I did too. And then, you know, we'd go, if we skipped school,
We can edit that out.
we'd have to go downstairs and bring up wood, keep the fire going. Lorene wouldn't let us stay up there. We didn't.
That's pretty smart on her
That was-
part, wasn't it?
Now, Lorene, one more thing I want to bring up, at least one more thing, is I remember as your store being like the center of the community. People would call you to find out things or tell things, and
I had the only telephone in Iron Station. And people would call me, mostly, like E.T. Ballard's wife would call me to tell her husband when he would stop by, he was a bread man, and when he'd stop by the store, and she would tell me for a grocery list or something for him to bring. And they also called me for bad messages. Somebody was in the hospital.
Yep.
And they hated to see me coming somehow because they knew I would be bringing bad news.
Oh, yeah.
And I also